Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about the incredible journey of Bitcoin, tracing it all the way from a couple of pizzas to a major player in financial portfolios all over the world. We're going to break down how this niche internet curiosity really became a global financial force. So, what's with this staggering number? Well, believe it or not, that was at one point the value of two large pizzas. Yeah, you heard that right. Back in 2010, this was basically the price paid for a pizza delivery, using what was then a pretty obscure, almost unknown digital currency. So how in the world does that happen? To answer that, we really need to peel back the layers. We're going to explore the story behind Bitcoin, the amazing technology that powers it, and what it was really designed to do in the first place. Let's dive right in. So what exactly is this thing that turned a simple pizza order into, well, a legendary transaction? At its very core, Bitcoin is the world's first decentralized digital currency. It was created way back in 2009, and its whole idea, its revolutionary purpose, was to create a new kind of money that no single person or company or government could control. And this definition right here, it gets to the absolute heart of it. The system is designed to completely cut out the traditional middlemen, like banks. So instead of relying on a big institution to process your payments, it's a direct, peer-to-peer transfer of value. It all operates on a network that belongs to its users. And this isn't just a small tweak, it's a fundamental challenge to the way we've always thought about money. Okay, so when you put them side by side like this, the differences are just stark. With our everyday fiat money, the dollar, the euro, a central bank is in charge. They have total control, and they can print more whenever they want. Bitcoin is the complete opposite. The control is spread out across a global network. Its supply is mathematically hard-capped at 21 million. That's it. And while a bank's books are private, Bitcoin's entire transaction history is a public record for anyone to see. But an idea this radical doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. Bitcoin wasn't created in a vacuum. Its origin story is directly tied to a specific moment of global panic, the huge fallout from the 2008 financial crisis. I mean, this was a time when trust in the entire banking system was at an absolute all-time low. And things moved fast. Just look at this timeline. On Halloween in 2008, this mysterious white paper just appears online. Only 2 months later, boom, January 2009, the network goes live. And by May 2010, it's actually being used to buy those now infamous pizzas. It's an incredible pace. And this just brilliantly shows the motivation behind it all. This exact headline from a London newspaper was embedded into the very first block of transactions ever created. It's a permanent digital timestamp, a direct shot, a commentary on the failing banking system that Bitcoin was designed to be an alternative to. And what about the creator? Well, that's the thing. Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. It could be one person, it could be a whole group of people. They were active in the early days, and then, in 2011, they just vanished. But in a weird way, their anonymity just reinforces Bitcoin's main principle. The system doesn't rely on a single leader. It truly belongs to its users. So this all raises a massive question, right? If there's no bank, who checks everything? Who stops people from cheating? Well, the answer is this brilliant piece of engineering built on 3 core technologies that all work together to create a system you can trust without needing a middleman. First up, you've got the blockchain. The easiest way to think about it is like a global digital record book. But here's the genius part. It's not one book sitting in one bank vault. It's distributed, it's copied across thousands of computers all over the world. So to add a new transaction, the majority of the network has to agree it's legit. This distribution means there's no single point of failure, and it makes the record basically tamper-proof. Next, we have these things called cryptographic keys. Your public key creates a receiving address. Think of it like your bank account number that you can share with anyone. But your private key, that's your secret password. It's the one thing that gives you the power to actually spend your Bitcoin. And this is so crucial. You are your own bank. If you control that private key, you and only you control your funds. And finally, we have mining. You can think of this as the engine that keeps the entire network running. Miners are just computers all over the world, all competing to solve a really complex math problem. The winner gets to do 2 things. First, they get to validate the latest batch of transactions and add them to the blockchain, which keeps the network secure. And second, as a reward for all that work, they receive brand new Bitcoin. So this is how transactions get confirmed and how new coins are brought into existence. So let's put it all together. A transaction basically looks like this. You use your private key to sign a transfer, you broadcast that out to the network, miners all over the world compete to validate it, and once it's validated, it's permanently added to that global ledger. And this all happens securely in about 10 minutes without a single bank being involved. Now, this number is absolutely critical. It's maybe the most important number in Bitcoin. The code itself dictates that there can only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, period. This isn't some policy that can be changed later. It's baked right into the system's DNA. This programmed scarcity is what makes Bitcoin a deflationary asset. Its supply can't be inflated away, unlike traditional currencies. And for a lot of people, this predictable scarcity is its core value. Of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like any truly revolutionary technology, Bitcoin's unique design comes with its own set of pretty distinct advantages and some real challenges that are still being debated today. The debate around Bitcoin is pretty fierce. On one side, you have defenders who champion its fixed supply as this amazing hedge against inflation. They talk about its open nature as a tool for financial inclusion for anybody with an internet connection. But on the other side, critics have some valid points. They point to its wild price swings, the huge amount of energy the mining network uses, and the fact that being your own bank is a massive responsibility. If you lose your keys, your money is gone forever. So, after more than a decade of this, where does Bitcoin actually stand today, and what could possibly be next for this pretty unique digital asset? The last few years have been absolutely pivotal in its journey toward the mainstream. I mean, we've seen El Salvador actually adopt it as legal tender. In the US, regulators finally approved spot ETFs, which are investment products that make it super simple for anyone to buy Bitcoin through a normal brokerage account. And the network itself just keeps ticking along, with the halving, this pre-programmed event that cuts the creation of new coins in half every 4 years, making the supply even tighter. And that really brings us to the key takeaway. It's remarkable evolution. What started as this niche experiment for a handful of cryptographers is now a serious topic of discussion in corporate boardrooms and at central banks. People are looking at it as digital gold, a safe haven against uncertainty, and as a global, borderless payment system all at the same time. Which brings us right back to the ultimate question. From two pizzas to a global financial asset, has Bitcoin already cemented its place in our future? Or is this grand experiment still just in its early chapters? That remains the central debate. And whether you see it as the absolute future of money or a fascinating bubble, one thing's for sure, its story is far from over.